The courtroom was packed, but nobody dared to move. It was one of those moments where time slows down, like the final scene of a movie right before everything explodes. At the center of it all sat Sean Carter, JayZ, a man who had spent his entire life building an image of power and control. Billion-dollar businesses, Grammy Awards, a marriage to Beyonce. He had it all. But today, none of that mattered. Not when he was staring down the possibility of losing the one thing even money couldn't protect: his legacy. Across from him sat a man named Rymir. Not a celebrity, not a mogul, just a man with a heavy heart, a steady voice, and a simple request: the truth. For over a decade, he had been saying the same thing: JayZ is my father. And for over a decade, nobody listened. Not the courts, not the press, not even JayZ himself. Most people dismissed him as a clout chaser, someone looking for fame or a check. But Rymir wasn't asking for money. He never had. He just wanted to know where he came from. That's it. A DNA test. A sliver of truth in a life full of silence. And now, after years of legal runarounds, media whispers, and being gaslit by a machine designed to protect the rich and powerful, he finally had his day. The test had been taken, the results were in, and JayZ, the man who had dodged the paternity question for years, was sitting just a few feet away from the answer. The energy in the room was suffocating. Reporters held their breath. Cameras were locked in. Everyone could feel the tension in the air like electricity before a storm. Even JayZ's legal team, usually cool and composed, looked uneasy. And then, the judge leaned forward, glanced at the document, and read the results aloud. The DNA matched. That single line detonated like a bomb in the courtroom. JayZ's jaw clenched. His eyes darted toward the floor. He muttered something under his breath. And then, for the first time in a long time, the billionaire lost control. His fists slammed the table. His voice cracked as he barked something no one could quite make out. His team immediately swarmed him, whispering in hushed tones, trying to reel him back in. But it was already too late. The cameras had captured everything. The internet would replay it 1,000 times before sundown. Meanwhile, Rymir sat still, almost too still. No smile, no gloating. Just the quiet, haunted stare of someone who had finally heard the truth. But too late for it to fix anything. This wasn't a celebration. It was confirmation of years lost. A childhood without a father. A life of being told he was lying, of being laughed at, ignored, smeared. And now, after all that, the truth came out in a sterile courtroom, long after the damage had been done. Outside, the world exploded. Social media erupted with hashtags. People were split. Some defended JayZ, saying he was only protecting himself, his family, his empire. Others dragged him hard, calling him out for denying his son for so long, questioning his integrity, wondering how someone so powerful could be so afraid of a simple truth. Memes popped up within minutes. Clip after clip of Jay's breakdown flooded timelines. But this wasn't just entertainment. This wasn't gossip. This was a man's life. 2 men's lives. One had spent his whole life avoiding the truth. The other had spent his whole life chasing it. And now they were face to face. No more lawyers, no more PR spin, just father and son. The truth was finally out. And neither of them knew what came next. JayZ didn't look like a mogul anymore. He looked like a man cornered, cracked open by a truth that refused to stay buried. His hands trembled as he wiped his face, his composure shattered. For a man who had navigated some of the biggest business deals in the world without blinking, this hit differently. This wasn't a contract negotiation or a PR crisis. This was blood. This was fatherhood. And no matter how much power he held, outside that courtroom, it meant nothing here. His lawyers scrambled, flipping through paperwork, whispering legal jargon that sounded like static in the chaos. They were clearly trying to get a recess, trying to reset the room, trying to shield him from the storm that was already outside. But Jay didn't seem to hear them. His eyes were locked on the floor, trapped in an internal battle between denial and acceptance. Every camera in the room was pointed at him, and he knew it. He had spent his entire career mastering image control, but in this moment, the image was shattered. Rymir hadn't moved, still seated, still watching. But his face was a storm of emotions: anger, relief, sadness, confusion. He had always imagined this moment would bring closure, that hearing the truth from a judge's mouth would finally give him peace. But it didn't. It just opened another door filled with questions. Why did it take so long? Why didn't JayZ ever reach out? Why had the truth been treated like a threat instead of something sacred? He thought of his mother, Wanda, the woman who had told him the truth when he was just a kid, who repeated the same story year after year, even when no one believed her. She was gone now. Gone before she ever got to see this day. She died carrying the weight of being ignored, dismissed, discredited as just another woman with a claim. But she was right. She was right the entire time. And now, with her gone, the proof finally stood undeniable in black and white. The courtroom buzzed. The judge tried to maintain order, but the whispers wouldn't stop. Journalists typed furiously, drafting headlines in real time. The moment was too big. JayZ's breakdown, the DNA results, the tension in the room. The story was no longer confined to four walls. It had already escaped. It was already trending worldwide. Outside, the crowd grew louder. Protesters, fans, reporters. Some held up signs in support of Rymir. Others shouted defenses for JayZ, calling it a setup, a PR stunt. The lines were being drawn fast, and the internet fueled the fire. But inside, behind the headlines and the noise, the moment was deeply human. Jay finally raised his head. His eyes met Rymir's. For a second, everything else disappeared. The crowd, the cameras, the chaos. It was just them. A father looking at the son he had never acknowledged. A son staring back at the man he had hoped to know for his entire life. Neither spoke. They didn't need to. The silence said everything. JayZ didn't say a word as the judge dismissed the room. He just sat there, still as stone, staring straight ahead like he was trying to slow down time. His empire, his image, his control, the myth of being untouchable, had taken a hit no press team could polish. This wasn't a beef with another rapper. This wasn't business. This was family. And it had unfolded in public, with a verdict that left no wiggle room. The DNA matched. He was the father. The courtroom emptied slowly. Reporters swarmed the hallway, phones up, record buttons blinking red. Outside, the crowd pressed harder against barricades, shouting questions no one would answer. But Jay stayed, in his seat, alone with the weight of what the truth had done. He didn't look powerful anymore. He looked like a man trying to figure out how to face the wreckage of choices he had made decades ago. Rymir walked out quietly, slipping past the cameras without a word. He didn't smile. He didn't pose. He wasn't there for headlines. He just wanted out. For years, he had carried the burden of proving something that should never have required a courtroom. He had been called a liar, a clout chaser, a scam, artist, all for asking a man to acknowledge what a simple test had now confirmed. He wasn't celebrating. He was grieving. Grieving the father he never had. The moments that would never be returned. The years filled with questions that never got answered until it was too late to matter. Back inside, Jay finally stood up. He adjusted his jacket like he was trying to put the armor back on, but it didn't fit the same. His lawyers whispered next steps, PR strategy, legal appeals, damage control, but their voices barely registered. His mind was somewhere else, not on his brand, not on headlines, but on the boy who had just walked out the door. That boy wasn't a kid anymore. He had grown up without him. And now he was a man, quiet, composed, carrying himself with a dignity that had nothing to do with money or fame. That was the part that cut deepest. Jay hadn't just missed the truth. He had missed the entire journey. Outside, the internet was on fire. Clips of Jay's reaction had already gone viral. JayZ breaks down in court. The headlines screamed. Everyone had an opinion. Some mocked him, others defended him. Conspiracies spun in every direction. But the story had outgrown gossip. This wasn't just about a celebrity paternity test. It was a cultural reckoning, a reminder that no amount of fame can shield you from accountability forever, not when real lives are involved. At home, Beyonce hadn't issued a statement. The Carters were quiet, too quiet. The implications weren't just personal, they were massive. Marriage, family, brand deals, legacy. Everything Jay had built was now under a microscope. Not because he had a son, but because he had buried the truth for so long, letting silence do the damage. The story wouldn't go away, not this time. Too many people saw themselves in Rymir, the ignored, the dismissed, the fatherless. And too many saw themselves in Jay, the one who avoided the truth until it cornered him in front of the world. For Rymir, the win wasn't really a win. The court gave him truth, but not time, not connection, not closure. JayZ was his father, but that didn't suddenly make him a son. It didn't erase birthdays missed or moments gone. The verdict gave him what he wanted, but not what he needed. Jay stepped out of the courthouse. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted, but he didn't speak.